Welcome to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast, where we discuss cutting-edge techniques, industry trends, and business insights to take your fence or deck company to the next level and dominate your competition. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Danner, and also the founder of Fence and Deck Marketers, which is a digital marketing agency that works exclusively with fencing and decking businesses. And today I have another great guest for you today that I'm really excited about. I have Grant Smith, the owner of SimpleSide Construction in North Carolina, in the Outer Banks area. And Grant is a young guy, 34 years young, and already seen a lot of success and grown his business to $2.5 million in the nine years he's been in business. And we're going to be kind of diving into that today and kind of learning about his journey and all of that. So, Grant, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. How's it going, man?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Alex. It's going good. Had a nice easy fall, so not ready for the cold, but I know it's coming.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's already going to be 20, I think, here this next couple of weeks. So in Maryland, anyways. But
yeah, we're not getting that yet. But we're still...
Yeah. And actually, Grant and I are part of a group together. Run by Chris Breen, and been in the group for several months now, and I really hadn't had a chance to connect with him, one-on-one. Everything's, kind of in a group atmosphere. So one day I was like, well, let me reach out to him, and there's no better way than, I guess, to come on the podcast and do an interview. And, I've, in our group, a lot of deck builders in there. So I listen and kind of try to, learn from you guys, since I'm not actually building decks and I'm on the marketing side. So I hear kind of what you guys talk about, and always sounded like you have a lot of good stuff going on. So I'm excited to share that today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I guess, Grant, to kind of start things off, you just introduce yourself. Kind of be cool to hear a little bit about your story, in the decking industry, everything that, I guess, led up to your creating SimpleSide Construction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I started about 9 years ago is when I actually incorporated the business, and we've gone through just about kind of every iteration of residential construction and remodel to get to where we are now. I wanted to be a real estate investor. I got a degree in civil engineering out of college. I started working for a concrete company, and bought a personal house. Great time right after kind of that recession and everything, and I was able to kind of fix it up, refinance it. Bought another house to flip, and in the midst of working my full-time job with commercial construction, it wasn't the atmosphere that I wanted. And when I realized that I was going to make my yearly salary off of one single house flip, I told him to kick rocks. So that kind of started my entrepreneurial journey outside of W-2 world. And so at that point I was hooked. I was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Well, then being young, dumb, and everything, I found myself I reconnected with a friend in college, and we started dating, and she was like, real estate investing sounds cool, but you need a job. At that point, I had completely made myself unemployable. So that's kind of where the journey started. I was like, okay, well, I'll start from the ground up. So after I quit my job, I was working for a kitchen and bathroom remodeler. And I was just like, look, if I'm going to flip houses and stuff, I'm going to learn this from the ground up. My uncle's a general contractor in Virginia, so I had always kind of been around it and everything, but never really getting my hands too dirty with it. So I started at the ground up, started with interior trim, hanging cabinets, again, bathroom remodels, stuff like that. And then as I went on my own, I was hungry taking anything. I was doing maintenance stuff. I was subcontracting for Lowe's. I was anything you can think of, replacing deck boards here and there. And then things just continued to grow and grow. And again, this was all around this idea of fueling this real estate investing, which at that point I was like, okay, we can I moved to the Outer Banks at that point. I moved to the Outer Banks in 2014. And when we moved, the way to real estate invest was building spec homes. And so we bought a couple lots, and I hired a general contractor, and as soon as we signed the contract, about a week later, he actually passed away suddenly. And it
Mm.
was completely unexpected. Not a great thing, but anyways, in that, my again, my wife, in her infinite knowledge, she was like, you need to get your general contractor's license. So I'm doing remodeling, doing handyman things, kind of growing. I think at that point I maybe had one employee just helping me, just labor, and everything's word of mouth. I'm working for like property management companies, things like that, and got my general contractor's license, and started building these spec homes. We had bought two lots at the time. Um, and so in that, I was hiring guys to frame and everything like that. And then I started really learning the aspect of building decks, of siding a house. And YouTube was obviously, I'm a product of YouTube and the internet and of everything being of my age. So what I'm watching get done by these people that I hired versus what I'm learning online as the correct way to do things were two different things. And really, at that point, it really stuck with me. Like, there's this knowledge gap where I'm at. There's this gap of what people are doing and what they should be doing, where technology, where construction is at these days in most parts of the country. And so at that point, it really started to fuel my passion for this outdoor space, for this kind of battling our elements where we're at, and trying to protect people's investments. Fight against the harsh environment that we are. We're right on the coast of the Atlantic. I mean, we're surrounded on it's I people call it an island. I joke that we're actually a peninsula because we're connected all the way up through Virginia. It's not until you get to over the Oregon Inlet Bridge, which I'm sure if you guys know, like wicked tuna and stuff like that. That's where everything's like prevalent there. It's not until you get there that you're really on this island, but we are a barrier island, and so we have water on all sides. You can see the sun rise and set over water, and so we're just in a really harsh environment. And so this knowledge gap, and again, just kind of this engineering mind and challenge that I saw in front, it's really what drove me to kind of um, start pursuing this more as a career, and less as just a means to invest in real estate.
Yeah. I was looking when I was before we came on the call, I was looking at your location and was blown away because it is, I did not expect that to be like, I mean, it looks like an island, but I guess, it's connected, like you said, but it's not a small piece of water to the left or right. I mean, the ocean's on one side, and then I guess it's some kind of bay or something on the,
Yeah, you got
uh,
the Albemarle Sound or the Pamlico Sound.
yeah,
And yeah,
it's
I mean, so
yeah,
there it all connects. The sound side connects to the intercoastal waterway and all that, which is, I think, even goes up to Maryland through the Chesapeake Bay and everything where you're at.
yep, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so you've been in business 9 years, kind of told the journey, I guess, coming up to this point. Can you just give a little bit of an update, kind of where you're at now in terms of, employees, crews? Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess start with
Yeah.
that.
So we use subcontractors. We use 1099, but I just I call them 1099 only, by the way. I pay them. They're in our weekly meetings, they're at our parties, they're at our quarterlies. We train with them, everything like that. So they're very much part of our family of a company. Outside of that, we currently have a project manager, a project coordinator, an office manager, and then I am owner and sales.
Gotcha.
Um, we have
And
our own office space. It's about a 1,500 square foot office space. A little confined to have a full blown out showroom, but we do have exterior space that we have plans to kind of build a showroom-esque kind of real world, going back to that maintenance free and showing people like this is how it's going to deteriorate because it's sitting outside in the element just like your deck will be. So I'm super excited for that for
yeah.
2025.
Is it, and where you're at, I mean, is there any kind of like stats on that, like how much quicker it decays? like if you're using wood or certain materials? I mean, is there anything like that?
Not, I mean, I say that when I tell people, when I talk about decks and stuff and trying to go with treated versus composite, things like that, I'm telling people, I can confidently tell you 8 years for treated decking. Anything over that, I tell them it's the 10-year hot water heater, right? Like you can see your grandparents have 20-year-old water heater in there. I can't guarantee that. I can't say that's going to be the standard. That can be an anomaly if you get it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you call me in 20 years and you say, haha, my deck is still lasting. I'd much rather that phone call than you call me in 5 years and you say, what the heck, man? It's already time to replace this. So I tell people about 8 years for treated decking. And then now outside of that, it's really doing the things in terms of, like I was talking with you earlier, galvanized fasteners, things like that. That's bare minimum here. That's like chuck in a truck kind of things. We, you know, we use stainless steel, and not only do we use stainless steel, we have to use 316 stainless steel. If you use 304 stainless steel, it will rust all the same. You'll find it out. So if it is magnetized, we're not using it. Is basically kind of what it comes down to. 316 stainless doesn't magnetize, and aluminum, even aluminum, like you got to be very careful with aluminum. If it has exposed welds, those welds will corrode and deteriorate just like a galvanized metal will. You got to use aluminum that's powder coated, that doesn't have exposed welds, and that seems to last. And you really got to do your due diligence with all the material. You got to look into the warranties. You can't just look at a warranty and see the big sticker on the front that says 25-year warranty. Because when you get into the paperwork, it says, if you're within 5 miles of the coast or something like that, it's not a warranty that we honor. And it's at our thinnest point, we're less than a mile wide. At our, from water to water, you're not getting 5 miles away from the water around here. So it takes a little bit more digging into, more consideration, absolutely, when you're building in this area to make sure you're protecting someone else's investment, and you're selling something that it will last.
Yeah. And like I said, I learned from you guys, do my own research, and I've done a lot of podcasts with like manufacturers and stuff. So I try to learn from everybody. And I was curious, what types of boards you're using out there. I mean, for the composite side, do you have to use like strictly like PVC, or I mean, what do you have to? I guess you're
Yeah,
using wood, so you
so
could use anything, but
Yeah,
um,
so I mean, we're timber tech through and through. It's what I'm selling. I'm not going to lose a job over picking another manufacturer, but if I'm selling it, it's going to be timber tech. We our environment's unique in the sense of like our area is a vacation area, obviously being so close to the coast, so close to so many outdoor things. Um, but our industry, our tourism industry is single family home rentals long before Airbnb was ever a twinkle in that guy's eye. So they say that we have 200,000 plus people that come and go every weekend during the on season. And
wow,
with that is a lot of just wear and tear on
yeah,
decks, on all these high use areas. And obviously people come for the outdoors here, so they get a lot of use. And I say all that to say that we still do a lot of treated decks, and it's not because people don't see the investment of not having to replace stuff every 8 years or so, but it's because the inevitable can always happen in terms of these renters that come and use these spaces. They're going to use them way harder and abuse them way more than if it was your personal residence. And so
yeah,
all those things absolutely factor into the material that we use. And again, if we're doing treated, you got to use stainless steel screws, 316 stainless. We still joist tape everything, and um, but we're in an archaic area where the knowledge of the internet and stuff and what that provides is not as prevalent as it is in other areas.
gotcha. Okay, and you said so. building, I learned from the all the Fortress stuff at Deck Expo with Scott Sheffield. But I mean, do you use a lot of steel frame decks, or are you still using primarily wood? I mean, how's that? What's best, I
Yeah,
guess?
so I mean it's 99.9% wood.
Okay,
You know, and that's something where again you look into the warranties and maybe not quote me on numbers because it's not even anything that I can like even entertain, right? Because not only do you have but I believe like Fortress steel framing for most places it's at least a 50-year warranty, maybe even a lifetime warranty. I think there's a caveat in there of 10-year warranty for on the coast.
gotcha.
TimberTech has an aluminum framing, but again, all those things like not only do you have the warranty aspect from the manufacturer, but then you have this stigma built around um, these these materials, right? Anything metal. If I say metal, you get a little cringe, a little twitch in someone's eye when you start talking about the possibility of stuff. Um, so yes, 99.9% of our stuff is wood, and we are actually in the process now of really starting to push Owens Cornering wear framing lumber, and that composite fiberglass framing lumber. That although the expense is there, that's one of those products that I can confidently say is warranted and will last the test of time. And even in our environment. Now, again, it comes with using correct fasteners and stuff for it because it's installed very identical to wood framing. So you still have to use the correct fasteners and everything and use 316 stainless. But that seems like our most viable option in terms of an alternative framing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was watching some videos on that. So those black composite boards they use, are they always black or they have
So
different
they
colors?
have a couple of different colors. I mean, it's really a black, white, beige. I've actually never seen like the beige, they call it sand. I've never seen that in the structural framing, though I see it on their brochures. Black and white typically.
Yeah.
And for us, you can go around the country, you can see on YouTube, you can see on Instagram, like a lot of people they're using the manufacturer's color match fascia and stuff like that. For a lot of our accents, we're using white PVC, so it's another avenue where that white structural framing can add a good accent, a good colored accent, good visual accent without needing that extra step of adding a fascia board onto your decking.
Okay. And I was curious because we were talking about, and for everyone that's listening that doesn't know about Outer Banks, like that was my whole life has always been like that's the place where people went. It's not too far from here, but like I guess that's just like a huge, huge tourist area and something I think everybody's heard of on the East Coast at least. But I was just kind of curious because when I went down there, all the houses, at least on the water, they're super high off the ground. I guess like a lot of beach houses that are waterfront. Does that create any issues when you're building the deck on those types of houses, like the foundation work? Is it anything extra,
Yeah,
I guess you got to do?
so, another unique aspect of our area, right, is that we build everything like it's a dock, like our homes are on pilings. We use 8x8 pilings. Um, on the ocean front, each piling can be embedded as much as 16 foot in the ground.
Wow.
For most things and a little bit inland, just directly off the ocean, we're 8 foot embedment with these things, but they're 8x8 square pilings that are either being washed down with high pressure water and just pushing the sand out, or they're being or big excavators coming and tamping and using the head tamper and tamping these things down, or a mixture of both. Um, so it's definitely another unique and even the same thing. Like I know, like being in the group and listening to everyone else, like people have like uh they have different factors for how high off the ground they are in
Yeah.
terms of how you price it and things like that. And I mean, our minimum starts at 8 foot. Like every house is about 8 foot off the ground, except for older ones, things like that. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, we're at least 8 foot off the ground, and we're building on these pilings. We're not temporary framing and digging footers and pouring concrete and things like that because our soil base is sand. There's no
Yeah.
no clay. There's no, you know. helical piers, stuff like that. I mean, you'd have to go 40 feet in the ground to ever hit any amount of pressure that would equate to anything being stabilized for something so skinny.
Yeah, yeah. Gotcha. Okay. And I know that some of the ones you're installing, like you're doing some multi-level decks, some the ones I saw on your website, some really, really beautiful decks that some of these guys have. So I guess that does that add to more complexity to it? I mean, digging deeper, or how's that end up working?
Yeah, so I always the way I equate it is if you have a we have state, we have state codes just like anyone else, and they've deemed it that 8 foot is a blanket depth, right? So I mean in reality, our area is not that old. A home from 1980s, whether if you're in Maryland, that's you could probably find a home from 1910 without, going too far. You can find
Yeah.
1900
Oh
homes
yeah.
and it's not too crazy. For us, that kind of extrapolation, that kind of equation is about a 1980 home for us. Like before that, it was fishing shanties and things like that. There was not really much established out here. So with those homes, you can see where they're on 6x6 pilings, and they're literally just post hole dug into the ground 4 or 5 feet, not really mechanically or flush down with water where you get 8 foot down. So what I say is, if they're obviously you have these real world scenarios where these homes have been here for 50 years at this point, and they've, aside from minor settling, they've been fine on 4 or 5 foot embedment. If you have a blanket statement that says 8 foot, then and you're not required to get engineering or anything to confirm that or guarantee it, then really, you may be able to get away with 4 or 5 foot, with engineering and actually calculating loads and settlement and all that fun stuff. But it's just a blanket requirement for us is 8 foot embedment.
Gotcha. Okay. And since I haven't had anyone on, as I was telling you, that's on the ocean, I guess primarily. Maybe I haven't, I'm forgetting, but I'm curious too, like with because I would assume, I guess anybody that's in a similar role, maybe even likely a different area, but anything that you've like seen maybe on the sales side that like, kind of helps you stand out, anything, always like to touch on sales. So I'm just curious, like anything unique selling positions you found like really work to, sell for these types of vacation homes or vacation rentals, like you're saying. I mean,
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like that.
absolutely. So we're our owners are funneled in from everywhere. It's not like, again, their second homes, their investments. So our clients live in Pennsylvania, they live in Northern Virginia, they live in all these really high end prestigious areas. And so the goal for most of them is they want these homes to be high end and prestigious. So you are either going to do that the inexpensive way, and you're going to use treated wood and you're going to wait for it to dry, and then you're going to paint everything, or you're going to go the high end, what I call maintenance free route, when you're using composites, you're using PVC decks, and you're using PVC fascias and stuff to wrap these wood pilings, or you're using high end railing. And so um there's absolute, but again, it all comes down to correctly uh advising on the correct material, and pushing for it. Like when we sell a maintenance free deck, it stems from somebody that has owned a house that where their wood pickets have been painted, and they've had to paint them every 2 to 3 years, where in a lot of parts of the country and stuff, things are going to last a lot longer. People ask me when they do treated decks, like when should they stain it? And I tell them, look, if you wake up on Saturday morning and you enjoy staining your deck and staining your pickets, then stain it. If you don't, but you have to have it colored, then look at an alternative composite or PVC material or a maintenance-free material. Um, and if you don't have the budget for any of that, then leave it alone. Keep algae, keep any kind of mildew growth off of it, get gutters to keep water off your deck, all those things, but don't do it, because those stains, those sealers, they're going to look perfect for, the first couple weeks that you put it on. Everything's going to beat up. You think you're doing everything well, it's going to last forever. If you don't keep up with that, and if you don't cut that maintenance schedule in half from what it tells you, if it says every 5 years, if you're not doing it every 2 years, your deck is going to deteriorate way quicker than if you would have just left it alone. So, from the decking side, it's absolutely, coming from a necessity, a need to be maintenance free, or it's coming from a pain point of continuously having to paint pickets and things like that and keep
Yeah.
restaining things. And then from the siding side, I call it, I tell people all the time, I call it matching maintenance. Like if you want a cedar shake house, which is a very iconic kind of look for our area. They call it, like, Nags Head colleges have this very similar look where it's a red cedar shake and a green roof and green accents of shutters and things like that. And they let it wear and it gets dark. If that, to me, if you're good with it, that's maintenance free. But if you want white and stuff, don't get trim that you're going to have to paint again. Don't go with a LP Smart Side trim that's going to have to be painted because you already have a maintenance free product. Go with if you want white trim, go with PVC. That'll make it maintenance free. If you're, we do a lot of LP Smart Side. And I see people all the time, they'll do LP Smart Side and they'll put PVC accents on it. And it's like, someone's gonna come back behind this in 10 years when they have to paint your siding again, and they're gonna paint right over that PVC. And so there's no reason to spend that money on it. So it really comes from a sales side, it really comes down from what level of maintenance, and what level of, what cycle of when do you want to think about this thing again? What's your idea with this home? We do have high turnaround with homes because a lot of these are investments, but then we have family heirlooms when they've been in the
Yeah.
family for years and years and they can never imagine selling it. It's going to get passed down to their kids. And so finding those reasons, finding those motivations or those pain points, and it really comes down to, like, the harshness of our environment and what their goal is out of it, is
Yeah.
how we're going to sell and what we're going to sell.
Yeah. And I was wondering that too, because that was my first thought when you first told me, like, if there are a lot of investment properties, I was curious if a lot of guys are just like, throw wood on there because I'm going to sell this thing in like a couple years or whatever. I mean, I guess you still have to stain it and whatever. But if you're only staining it maybe a couple times, it ends up being cheaper than the composite. I don't know. But
Yeah, and those are the kind of conversations that we're having very early on,
yeah.
whether it's on the phone before we're coming out for a consult or whether it's while we're out on a consult. It's trying to understand their goals. It's trying to understand what they're planning to do with this house. Because the reality is it's going to cost you material by itself. It's going to cost you twice as much for the cheapest composite. And if I'm telling you 8 years and you plan to sell, you're going to get wood for 8 years and you plan to sell it in four, unless you're in an area where composite's just almost kind of required for the house,
Yeah.
right? Like you have
Yeah.
some of that where you don't want treated wood on a $4 million house, even if you're
Yeah.
going to do it for 6 months. But if it doesn't call for it, then depending on what their goals are for the home is gonna depend on ultimately what they choose. And so it is, going back to the group and just, getting involved with deck builders around the country, so many have just completely shunned off treated, and I absolutely get it. But in our environment with our clientele and kind of how we are, so much of it is wood, and it would be a huge part of our business to just get rid of, just to say we're only going to go with composite. So it's again kind of unique for our area where um, it's going to always be a very prevalent thing that people continue to use.
Yeah. Do you ever see it becoming like more permanent homes, I guess, where people are like a Florida type thing where they kind of expand around that area or
You know,
that?
I don't, and like I said, it's this area, as soon as it kind of stopped being this fishing town, right? Like you talk to any of the fishermen around here, and we got a bunch of fishing piers. The drum run at certain times of years. You can go on the beach and catch blue, Spanish mackerel, king mackerel, depending on how close the Gulf Stream is. Um, as soon as it stopped being this hunting fishing oasis, it started becoming a vacation place, and it wasn't through large hotels. We can only build most of our municipalities, we can only build up to 35 foot tall, 50 foot for some commercial. So you're not having these huge high rises or anything like that where land's so expensive that hotels and stuff, it doesn't make sense. You have to build out instead of up. And
Yeah.
so our environment, our area has always been short-term vacation rentals, again, way before Airbnb and stuff. So these homes, I mean, we obviously COVID and stuff, everyone became remote working and we had a high influx of people because it was like, wow, I'm gonna live in the place that I can vacation from. And
Yep.
on the west side, it's not, it's not overly it has increased in value over the years because of the demand. Um, but even that, you get in these homes and the first thing someone says is, "Where's my pantry? Where's my closet?" Like there's those things were not, you don't have walk-in closets, you don't have big pantries because these were short-term rentals, these were fishing shacks. Um, and so I think it's always going to be that way because it's always going to be a place that people want to come and visit and enjoy. And and you would have to completely 180 everything to turn it into a place that hotels and stuff are going to come into.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. Well, I mean, of course, since it's marketing is my thing, I have to ask a couple questions, even though we talked about it a little bit. But
Yeah.
um, because you were saying that you didn't really do any marketing until was it this year? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So it was about like aside from just the local North Beach Sun magazine calling and saying, "Hey, do you want a quarter page ad or this or that?" And then finally being persistent to whether I'm like, "Okay, I feel like I'll just yeah, here you go. I'm not expecting much out of this, but here you go." Aside from that, yeah, we started marketing back in June, June, and it stemmed from having a horrible Q2 um, sales quarter where, and again for me for our area, our seasons are reversed, right? Like everyone starts picking up in spring, summer, fall, like early fall. Those are the busiest months, and then and people and even in our group they're fighting for building year round for we build in the winter and all those things. Like that's what they start marketing towards. And for us, we're opposite. Our slow season is the summer where all these tourists come and we can't work in these rental homes. Our busy season is in late fall, winter, and early spring. So yeah, it's so all that said, yes, this was our first year fully going into, creating a marketing budget, spending money on ad dollars and everything like that, and trying to get paid leads in. Because before that, it was word of mouth. We joke all the time. It's good old boy country down here where handshakes mean everything, and just word of mouth from the realtor that sold your house, the property manager that manages your property. Those things hold weight even still to this day. So word of mouth is absolutely still a very strong uh, marketing
Yeah. Yeah,
marketing.
no, that's good. Those are
But
free
it
too.
doesn't help. It doesn't. But it doesn't help in the dips, right? You're always going to
Yeah.
have those dips, and your property manager is not going to refer you to the people that live right next door to you or two streets down from you. Those are the people that you got to find yourself to get in front of, and that's the challenging part.
Yeah. So you basically just had to build connections. You mentioned like project or property managers and real estate. So like kind of doing the face-to-face networking is kind of what you've seen really help get a ton
Yeah,
more
yeah, face to
pros.
face. And like we kind of talked about, we beach life, beach mentality is a it's either a gift or a curse. It can be a disease on work ethic and punctuality and all those things. So for the longest time, our differentiating factor was just showing up on time, just answering phone calls, just doing what we say we were going to do. Where in some places you can't even have a business without doing that. For me, that put me in the top 5% of all the businesses. Um, and and me and my wife, we have a perfect kind of dynamic. She's a real estate agent. She used to work
Oh,
for
nice.
property managers. So early on, like that's where things really started to accumulate, where I started to meet other, prevalent real estate agents, started to get in with property managers. So just through that, through even just that is kind of how we started with a good, strong word of mouth.
Gotcha. Okay. And then now you're basically just doing Google ads and Facebook ads, right?
Yeah,
To
Google ads, Facebook ads, and trying to capture, as many 5-star reviews and everything as possible. We
yeah,
don't have anything like amazing, but we do have a 5-star review, and I always kind of joke, it's like I don't know how to quantitate how valuable a 5-star review is, but I know I spent a lot of money to make sure that we continue to have them, whether that's, just going above and beyond for clients, writing,
yeah,
it's construction. Things happen, things go wrong, communication sometimes does get dropped, and trying to make that up on the back end, trying to finish off on a strong foot is what I've always strove for, making sure that we do have 100% satisfaction. And sometimes that doesn't come with being a hard ass and sticking to the exact scope and saying that this is what the contract says. We didn't agree to this and stuff like that. Sometimes you gotta go above and beyond, go that extra mile
yeah,
to leave these guys with a good experience.
yeah. That's a sure way to get some 1-star reviews and piss off people. No, that's good, man. I mean, the reviews are, gosh, they're probably the number one thing we battle with, just because most people just don't care enough to leave one unless, like you said, you really show them a really good experience. Most people are kind of like, it doesn't take much for them to be like, all right, I'm not going to do it. Like just forget about it and just keep
Yeah.
going with the day. So,
I'm,
uh,
I'm there. In my day job, I'm a consumer, and I have great
yeah,
experiences all the
yeah,
time with
exactly.
reviews, right? So, I get it. And on the other side, like with our area and stuff, a lot of these clients, they're older. You know what I mean? They're 50, 60, 70 years old. They have to get they have to get their daughter or their granddaughter on just to sign
Yep,
up, just to electrically sign our contract.
yep.
Getting
Yeah,
them to
that's a
get
good
back
point
on
too.
right
Yeah,
around.
that, yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's a good point with the reviews too, because like if anybody's trying to get reviews, just sending them out in an email or even a text, like, yeah, it's better than nothing for sure. But like Grant was saying, they're not going to be able to figure it out if they're older, or they're just, even if they're not that much older, there's just a lot of people that don't like technology or not good at it or whatever. Most people say they're not great with technology. So, if you got to call them up and like, make sure they click the link and walk them through the process, like that's really the only sure way that we've seen to do it, whether over the phone or in person, because otherwise it's just, they're going to run into something and then give up immediately. Like they're never going to care enough to keep going and like be persistent and like figure this out. Like they're going to do whatever they want to do that day. So
Yeah, and it's funny, like I always hear people talk about like the front end, like how they deal with things, right? Like they never present a quote without being in person, right? Or they never they want to have that up front. You have to have all the decision makers at the beginning, right? But the follow through is all the way till the end, right? Why not get that last check in person? And that
yep,
way,
yep,
because in our process, we don't get that last 2% check until we've done a final walkthrough, we've completed a final punch list, and we have a 100% satisfied client. So if I get that 2% check in hand, then I can I can pull everything up and help them walk through it. I'm right there to help them with it, and that can be my closing. Like, hey, I'm glad we finished this up. Would it be okay if I ask you to give us a review? And I have it pulled up right here. We can do it
yeah,
all here, or here's the link. And it's one of those things, because again, and I'm sure for everyone, Google reviews are everything. That's where I go to look for everything. If I'm in a new
yeah,
spot, anything
oh
like that,
yeah,
I'm looking at 4.5 and above. Don't show me under 4. I'm filtering it. And
yep,
so those things they're free, but they are vast, so valuable, and sometimes so hard to get. I wish I could just throw money at it. I wish I could just say it's
yeah.
$1,000 a month and I'll get 10 5-star reviews. And I think there's fraudulent companies like that, but
Oh,
but
there
but
are for
legitimate
sure.
ones, right? Like I wish I
Yeah,
could just throw money at it. The reality is um they're tough to get, but
yeah.
they're so important.
Yeah, and Google's getting smarter and smarter with it, like where they can track where you're doing the review from and where the account was created and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's guys that get around it. I mean, I know there are, but long term, just it's better for the business, like you said, checking in at the end, making sure they're happy with it. Like then you get another referral from that, another free lead, a
Yep.
lot better business. So, But I know you have a bunch of stuff to do. You're a busy guy. Anything you'd like to add, I guess? Any nuggets of wisdom, anything like that as we kind of wrap up here?
Like I said in the beginning, I've gone through kind of every iteration of this, right? I started out doing kitchen and bathroom models. I built spec homes. I built custom homes. I did large additions. I've done years of $5-6 million a year. It rings true. What really brought me back was a passion for the environment, for that kind of challenge of battling it. And then what gave me the ability, what has given me the ability to have, quote unquote, that work-life balance where I'm, working 40 hours a week or less, is that we did specialize. We got into the niche, and you always hear that riches are in the niches, and it rings true. It's never going to be not. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be things like that. You wake up, you put one foot in front of the other, and you keep it going, and just keep going. That's what I
Yeah.
would say. Just
Yeah.
it's going to be hard. It's going to be easy. There's going to be failures and triumphs, and the only time you lose when you quit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Get rid of the plan B and just keep going, and eventually you'll make some progress and some wins, even though it mostly feels like you're losing. But even when
It
you're
does. It does.
doing,
You don't, it's like in the office where Jim like moves uh moves Dwight's chair, like moves everything like 1 inch at a time
yeah,
and right? You don't notice the little wins. You don't notice the little progress forward until you look back after a year and you're like, holy shit, like, you
yeah,
know, I don't, 2 years ago, I didn't have project managers. I didn't have all of this. I was doing everything. You know, and now I can look back and I can say, wow, I'm in a dream office. I have staff, like I have all these things,
yeah.
you know, take some time
Life's
to
good.
look
Yeah,
backwards and see where you went and really, and the only other way you can do that is just track some numbers, track some things, whatever and really look back um, you'll be surprised at how much you have gotten done, even when you feel like you've done nothing but going
yeah.
backwards.
Oh my God, that's so true. I feel like I always end the day like I got nothing done, even if I was working the whole day. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean,
And you'll have
yeah,
364 days of that. And then, on
yeah,
that 365, stop and look back and you'll be like,
yeah,
I've come a
yeah.
long
It's
way.
true. Yep, and set goals for this year. I mean, we're almost getting there. And we're actually doing a webinar coming up here in like I think it's the 12th. I'm going to send out an email to our email list but get something ready for 2025, have a plan for it, revenue goals, what you're going to do with
Yeah,
marketing.
but
You want to
this
hire
is
new people, that kind of thing. Yeah.
This is a time for budget. We were talking right before this, like looking at your services and what you offer and everything. And it's like at the end of the day, if it's budgeted, if the markup and margin it still gives you the ability to sell, then right now this is the fun time, right? I can put a Ferrari in the budget and see what it does by markup and just it's just numbers on paper. So this is the
Yeah.
fun time to really start planning for growth. Start planning for what you're going to spend, what you're going to sell for 2025. And like we had a conversation before, for me, it's really going to be looking at that website. It's going to be looking at different avenues of marketing, and seeing, again, challenges. Look at challenges, and if I got to sell a little more to make the markup work, we're going to set that goal as long as it's reasonable, and we're going to hit it because it's
Yeah.
fun to do hard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Keeps things interesting too. Not so boring and stuck in Groundhog Day or whatever.
That's right.
Uh,
That's
but
right. This is dreamers time right now. Think about what you
yeah.
can do
Yeah.
next year.
Well, I know you had to run. I need to pick up your daughter, so I don't want to
Yep.
keep you past that and leave her waiting. So, um, appreciate you coming on the podcast, answering all the questions I had, and kind of going over your story. I think everybody that's listening to this got a lot of value from it. I mean, you're a young guy. There's a lot. I think there's quite a bit of younger listeners that are kind of coming up and trying to grow their business and get to a level that you're at. And then all the seasoned vets and stuff. I know they listen to you in our group, and I'm sure the guys listening here, learn some stuff too. So appreciate you coming on here and going forward with this podcast. Going to keep doing weekly posts. I'm a little bit behind. Deck Expo kind of screwed some things up with all my interviews and stuff, but we are back and going to go back to weekly posts. And if you don't mind, if this was valuable, the episodes that we do, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast. It's a big help for us. And if you have any questions with your marketing, your website, your Google ads, Facebook ads, anything you're doing digitally, reach out to us. You can go to our website at deckfencemarketers.com. We post daily to all social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff. And then, like I was telling Grant, we have a webinar coming up in a couple weeks. So if you want to plan out your budget, I have a bunch of resources I give for free, and I'll go through and we'll actually create a plan for the entire marketing for the entire year. And it's one we spend the most time on. So if you want to get that kind of dialed in, this is a great way to do it. And I'll send an email out for that. But that is it. Thanks again, Grant, for coming on here, man. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. You have a good one.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.